Well, hunting season is just around the corner, so in this video I'm going to show you guys how to make a stone arrowhead that's capable of taking down pretty much any big game animal you set your sights on. Now, you can use a lot of different materials. For beginners, I always recommend glass because it's cheap, it's easy to find, and it's plentiful. For making flint points, you can make them out of little thin flat flakes like these. Very easy. Just essentially you just crunch in the edges, chip the flake until the shape you want, notch it, and then you're good to go. Now, I could make some arrowheads out of these, but it's a little too easy and doesn't really show you a whole lot because these really don't require much in the way of platform preparation and edge setup. So today I'm going to make a hunting point out of this piece of Texas flint. It's going to present us with some problems. We're going to have to set up our edges to reduce some thickness and get this piece shaped down, but we'll be able to make a functional and deadly point out of this piece of stone. Now, as you can see with this piece of stone, it's rather thin on this end and then it abruptly thickens up. And we also have some cortex on the outside here that has to be removed. So we're going to have to set our edges up. First things first is we want to reduce the thickest part of this flake as quickly as possible, which is going to be this area right here. So we're going to set our edges up and drive some flakes there to flatten and thin this piece out. I begin by removing small short flakes to thicken and shape the edge in preparation for several heavy flake removals. You don't want flakes to travel very far at this stage. Now, what I've essentially done was try to knock flakes off so that I could strike on this side, but the problem is you do not want to hit those little points like that. They will cause your piece to break. They essentially distribute the shock in an uneven manner. So if you ever have these little points set up on your platforms, you want to get them removed. I'm going to have to do that with pressure. I'm going to take my copper flaker. I could do this with antler, but I'm going to cheat today and use copper because the humidity is so high here that it softens my antler tools and makes them softer, and I'm not able to exert as much pressure. So I'm just essentially taking these small short pressure flakes to clean up the surface of that beveled edge. Now you can see it's much cleaner, it's much flatter. That's very important when you're setting up these edges. I'm going to attempt to knock the first flake off and take this cortex off. That's really important. And that's the big flake removal we want to do, so I'm going to attempt that one first. Took quite a bit of it off. Didn't remove quite as much mass as I wanted, but that's okay because I've got a second platform right here. I can come in and round this off. There we go, finally. Now, here's a neat little trick I'll show you guys. You can see how created a little bit of a step fracture there. One thing you can do with these flakes is you can put it back in there, use it as a punch. If I strike this again, this same platform, it'll drive that step fracture out of there. So let's give it a shot and see how it works. It didn't take it completely off, but it definitely did remove some of that step, so it's not nearly as severe. Makes it easier to send flakes through it and blend that in. Let me try to send another flake up here. Beauty. Oh boy, look at that one. Now look at how much mass that one flake removed. That's why you need to set your edges up correctly, especially when you're working thick pieces, and try to thin your preforms down as quickly as possible. When you set your edges up correctly, that's what you get. And you can rapidly thin a piece and get it shaped, and you don't lose that much size. So that's a beautiful flake. I could even make a smaller arrow point out of that. Definitely going to keep it. So I've done some more blending and shaping, and now you can see how much flatter and thinner this piece is. A lot more even. This is a really nice preform that we can now work into a effective hunting point.
Doing a little pressure work just along these edges to help blend and clean it up a little bit.
So after pressure flaking and edge blending and a little grinding, this is my platform on one edge. I want to show you guys, we've got a nice steep bevel here. It's heavy, it's heavily ground, but you notice that it's also fairly clean. You don't see any lumps or protrusions or any bumps along it. That's what you want when you make those platforms. If there was a bunch of step fractures and all kinds of protrusions here where I'm going to strike, it would end up it would dissipate the force, and the force would go in all kinds of crazy directions, and you end up breaking the piece. So that edge, and here's another one on the other side. You see how that edge comes down like this? Got a nice steep bevel to it. It's clean. There's not a lot of protrusions. There's a few, but they're very minor. And that's what you want. So I'm going to strike a couple of flakes off of this, and I think once you see how once your edges are set up properly, you're going to see just how quickly and rapidly you can thin a piece like this with just a few quick flake removals. I'm going to start by taking my first flake removal at the tip, the other at the base, and then maybe one or possibly two here in the center. It was a little bit short. Go next to it. Beauty. You see how far that flake traveled. Didn't take that much effort either. When you set your edges up right, your flakes will detach with a minimal amount of effort, which is what you want, because then that means less vibration, less chance of breakage. Strike again here towards the base now. The flake broke apart, but got another little protrusion here. Will act as another platform. And strike it. Oh, I could feel that one. Look at that. Another nice, beautiful flake traveled over halfway across the face. And we didn't lose any edge on that either. Now I've got one last center platform. Probably only going to get one flake off of it, but it should be a good one. And it is. Another beauty. Went almost all the way across the face, detached cleanly, no step fractures. It's really thinning this piece down. And we got an edge on the other side. I'm going to strike from that now. These came back to meet these flakes. There's another one. Go right next to it over here. Try it again. There you go. Now whenever you're striking at the base and your angle of force is towards the tip, it's very easy to break these points. What you want to do is dig that tip and make sure it's blunt into the end of your finger there, or into a piece of leather. That will dampen the vibration, because it's very easy to snap these points in half when you're striking this way. Another thinning flake, beautiful thinning flake from the base. Detached cleanly, feathered out, nice sharp edges. I'm going to go next to it here. Another one, detached cleanly, and one more. Oh, I got a little bit of a step fracture there, but that's okay. Really coming out nicely so far.
After you remove a series of flakes, it's important to remove the platform remnants and recontour and re-straighten the edges. Here I'm doing that with pressure.
So here's the finished preform. You can see how flat and thin it is now. It looks so much better than the piece of stone we started off with. Just strategic flake removals, edge preparation, and this is what you end up with. This piece is a little wider and rounded, more so than I'd want it to be for a hunting point, but now we can just essentially just pressure flake this thing into shape.
As shaping continues, I use progressively smaller and sharper antler flakers to further refine and shape the point. Every flake removal thins and sharpens the edge and prepares it for its deadly purpose. After final shaping, the point is ready for the notches. For this, I use a small, thin antler tine shaped like a thick popsicle stick. Once the notches are finished, I chip very fine serrations into both cutting edges, and the point is finally finished. These finely serrated edges are devastating on vital organs and will inflict ghastly wounds in skin, lung tissue, and arteries. The wounds are often 30 to 40% wider than the actual point itself, causing severe hemorrhage and resulting in very quick, humane kills. Arrow points don't have to be pretty or perfect to be effective. Most of my hunting points have broken corners, missing barbs or ears, and are not symmetrical, but they are sharp and are securely mounted to arrows that fly perfectly off my bow. When delivered to the vitals of a big game animal, they've never failed to do the job.